Hi everyone! This video will be showing you how to use the AutoCAD modification command stretch. I'm going to show you how to use stretch on kind of an object here, and I want to show you how to use stretch with some lines here. Within the stretch command, I'm also going to show you what the idea of a grip means and how you can use a grip to stretch things. But we're going to start out by stretching on some of these kind of odd objects, and then we'll get to how you're going to use this on a floor plan. Okay? Alright, so the first thing I want to show you is that the stretch command is located up here on the Home tab and on the Modify toolbar. Okay? We can also type stretch at the command line, or because my dynamic input is turned on, it's going to appear at my cursor. Okay? Now, the idea behind stretch is that you, when you create floor plans and different designs in AutoCAD, you want to be able to modify the dimensionality of entire objects. Okay? And what I mean by that is AutoCAD wouldn't be very useful if you couldn't draw a floor plan and then, you know, if the client changes their mind, go in and stretch out that floor plan by 5 feet, right? Stretch it out, make it 5 feet bigger. Or stretch it in, shrink it, and make it 5 feet smaller, okay? Now, this is, you know, there's the time-old discussion of hand drafting versus digital drafting, right? A person that's been hand drafting for a really long time will argue to you, you know, by the time you get that thing drawn in AutoCAD or Revit, I could have it already created with my pencil. Well, here is where, hands down, you will beat any hand drafter, and that is the ability to use stretch to modify things very quickly. Okay, someone who hand drafts with a pencil might be able to draw more quickly than you can in AutoCAD or Revit, maybe. I don't really know if I buy that, right? But if there is a change, they will never be able to make the change more quickly than you can in AutoCAD, okay? So let's talk about stretch, okay? So I'm going to grab these two pieces of text and I'm going to type M, enter. I'm just going to move them up a teeny bit so I have a little bit of space to breathe, and I'm going to move that one down just a little bit, okay? And what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to check and make sure that my units are in architectural units, okay? Because I want to stretch these items using architectural units, and if I don't have my AutoCAD set to architectural, then the input that I do type in won't be recognized, okay? So here's what I want to do. I want to take this object and I want to make this 1 unit bigger. So I want to take this edge of this and I want to stretch it down 1 unit, okay? Now, when I say stretch, let me just show you what I mean by stretch as opposed to move, okay? I want to make this object 1 unit bigger. So if I stretch this object, right, I see this start to happen, right? Isn't that great? Okay, I can stretch it down and make it bigger. All right. Now, what's nice about stretching is that really essentially your geometry turns elastic, right? And at this point where I want to make my object bigger, it becomes elastic and I can pull it down and stretch it out. Okay. So what's nice about that, as opposed to maybe moving something, is that if I grab these objects and I move them, right, they disconnect from the objects they're connected to. There's not that elastic relationship, right? We don't want to move these down and extend them and then trim them. We want to stretch it out so it remains cohesive, okay? So I'm going to show you how to use stretch on these objects, and then I'm going to show you about grips, and then we'll talk about using this on actual architecture, okay? So the stretch command, we can initiate the stretch command by clicking on it, okay? And really, the stretch command isn't a difficult command. The hardest thing about it is really sort of choosing how you select objects to stretch them, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is show you the correct way of selecting an object to stretch it, and then I'm going to show you a bunch of different other ways that won't be correct to stretch something, okay? So if I want to take this object and I want to stretch this portion of it right here, I want to stretch it down 1 unit, okay? Some things I want to note. The first thing I want to note is I want this piece to remain where it's at, okay? I just want to take this portion of the object and stretch it down, okay? So stretch is initiated. I'm going to, over here in space, not over here on the object, but over here in space, I'm going to click. I'm going to draw a selection window over the end of the object I want to stretch. I'm going to click a second time. And when I'm done selecting my objects, I'm going to hit Enter. I'm going to click a base point and I'm going to move in the direction I want to stretch that object. Okay. Now I can just move and I could click now if I wanted to end that stretch. Okay. Or I could type in a unit, move in the direction I wanted to go and type in a unit. So let's type in 1, Enter. Okay. So that just stretched that object down 1 unit, which in this case 1 is equal to an inch. Okay. I'm going to hit undo, enter. And I'm going to show you a couple of mistakes that would have happened if I had selected this object in a different way. So S for stretch, enter. If I had selected all of this, including this edge, right? Click, enter, pick a base point, move in the direction I want to go. Now do you see that that entire object moves down, right? Okay. Which is fine if you want that opening to become larger. Okay, I type 1, enter, and it stretches down. Now the space in here is 1 unit longer, and also the gap in between these two objects is longer. Undo. I'm going to CO, copy this object off to the side just so that you can view it as I stretch things. Okay, S for stretch, enter. Select my object, enter, and that's what it looks like. Escape. S for stretch, enter. Select just this lower portion, not this piece right here. Click, enter, and we see what happens. Escape. Okay. Now, S for stretch, enter. One thing that you may or may not have noticed is that I do have my ortho on right now, okay? So when I select my objects to stretch, enter, and I move in the downward direction, I'm moving straight, okay? This is a really key thing in stretching. I want to move my objects straight because if I turn my ortho off, you're already kind of seeing what could happen here, right? But if I press F8, and you notice my ortho turns off down here, right? You see how hard it is now to get that object to stretch completely orthogonal or straight. Okay, when I look at your assignments, do you see how those lines have kind of that jiggy-jaggy kind of look to them? When I see that, I know your lines are not straight. Even right there, see there's just a little jagginess. Even right there, ever so slightly, right? My eye, after using AutoCAD for a very, very, very long time, my eye immediately picks up on lines that are not straight, right? That's not straight. When I press F8, you see the difference immediately, right? F8 off. Okay, it's ever so slight, but it's not straight. And those inconsistencies are just, you know, I'm going to use the word unacceptable, and we might laugh at that, but those inconsistencies are just really unacceptable in AutoCAD, okay? So when you stretch something, if it needs to be stretched perfectly straight, F8, you move in the direction you want to go, and you input your dimension, okay? So first thing, we sort of, you know, pay attention to how we select things, right? And that will really change, you know, what you're stretching. So pay attention to that. The second thing, make sure that you have your ortho on if you want it to stretch straight, okay? The third thing that we're going to need to know is that you need to select the objects you want to stretch the first time you select them. Because if you miss something, the stretch is really not going to work. Okay, so S for stretch, enter. If I want to stretch this entire bottom of this object and I accidentally just pick this corner, and then I think, oh shoot, I really actually wanted this whole thing, enter. You see how it just really doesn't work, right? The stretch is just not going to work, okay? Stretch is finicky in its selection, and I said that in the beginning, right? Your stretch will be successful if you learn how to select items properly, okay? Now, I'm going to hit escape here, and I'm going to S for stretch, and I can pick that whole object, enter, click, and stretch it down, okay? S for stretch, enter. If I pick one edge of the line, enter. That happens. Again, unacceptable, right? Escape. S for stretch, enter. I select that whole corner, enter. Click. Not really what I wanted, right? Escape. S for stretch, and I grab, this corner, enter. You guys hopefully are starting to see how, again, really how you select items in AutoCAD is going to determine whether or not your stretch was successful. Okay? Escape, escape. Okay, so right now we don't have anything inside of this to worry about, meaning there's no furniture or doors or windows or anything like that, okay? So we're purely just talking about changing the perimeter of this object to stretch it, okay? So I can hit S for stretch, enter. I could grab this side, enter. I could click on a known point for my base point, click. And if I wanted to stretch from that corner to this object, right, I could object snap, click, and I could also do that. Okay, S for stretch, enter. Let's make this gap a little bit bigger, enter. Oop, let's turn my ortho on, F8. Click, there we go. Okay. All right, so that is just in general how the stretch command works. Now, I don't have to just stretch spaces like this. I could also stretch something like lines, okay? S for stretch, enter. I could select all those lines at the same time, and I'm just selecting the top portion of them because I want that piece to go up to this edge here. Enter, click, move in the direction I want to go. I want to snap to this object, but I want my perpendicular snap to happen because with that midpoint snap engaging, if I click, my lines are all going to go crooked, right, towards that snap. So I'm going to come down here to my object snaps. I'm going to choose perpendicular. There's my perpendicular snap. Right now I get straight lines, and there we go. Okay. All right. I'm going to hit undo. You generally know how the stretch command works to make spaces and objects larger or smaller, right? And you know that you can stretch and you can click, or you can stretch and you can enter a dimension. Okay, so I want to show you something else before we get into showing you how to use this to stretch architecture. I want to show you about grips. Okay, I want to show you how they work. So if I select an object, this is a line. A line has a beginning point, it has an end point here, right? And it has a midpoint here. Okay, these blue squares are called grips. And when a grip is blue, it means it's cold and uneditable. And when I hover over a grip, I haven't even clicked, right? But if I hover over a grip, you see we have a stretch option, okay? So if I just click on that grip, it becomes hot and red, and the red means it's editable, okay? And that will allow me to stretch or lengthen this object. And you see now if I click, it stretches, I click, and I come up to my line here. Oop, I want to put my perpendicular stretch back on, or object snap on. Settings. I'm going to turn on perpendicular. There we go. Okay. And I click, and there we go. I click on this object, click to make it red, bring it up, click. Click, click on the red grip. There we go. Now if I click on an end grip here and it turns red, I can stretch or lengthen a line. If I click on an object and I pick the middle grip and I click, it then moves the object, right? Click, move it, click. Click, move it, 2, enter, and it moves it over 2 units, 2 inches in this case. Okay, so every object has a grip. You'll notice when I select these, right? These are polylines, and so you'll see, right, these are oh no, they're not polylines. I just selected a bunch at the same time. These are lines, but because this line and this line intersect at this corner, when I click on that grip, it brings both of them to whatever location I've selected. Okay, there we go. Grips are, I use grips actually quite a bit. It's probably not the best technique, but when you've used AutoCAD for a really long time, will say maybe you break the rules sometimes, but that's okay because you know how to break the rules and you can get yourself out of the situation you've created if needs be. So I will use grips a lot of times, 9 out of 10 times, just to grab something and kind of, you know, move it out of the way, essentially, right? So click, move it, or I click and I drag it, or I click and I move it and I click again, right? That's going to be 99.9% of the time what happens when I use grips, okay? So I could also have used extend if I needed to, like, for example, I'll bring this line down here, okay? I could have typed EX, enter, enter, and I could have extended that, I could have extended that, I could have extended it again, right? But it's just another method and it's really easy, it's very visual, and I kind of like that. So I will use the grips to stretch and to shorten or to move objects quite a bit, okay? So that's stretch in general. Those are grips in general. Couple more things I want to talk about with regards to stretching, and I'm going to zoom out, zoom extents, and you'll notice we have a floor plan over here. I want to show you how to stretch this floor plan, okay? And I'm going to show you how to stretch the floor plan because this is going to be an assignment that you'll have to do. And then I'm also going to show you how to use stretch to move things, okay? So let's talk about really, you know, the main functionality of stretch. How do I take something like this and alter it using stretch, all right? The first thing, again, I want to reiterate is that you really have to choose you have to use the right selection method and choose the correct selection set to make this function correctly, okay? So you're going to have an assignment and it's going to be to alter this floor plan, all right? One of the things that you're going to have to do is you're going to have to, I think, make this garage a little bit larger, okay? So let me show you how I would go about that, okay? Some things you need to notice. We have what are called, these windows are blocks, and when you have several different objects that are all glued together, like this rectangle and these two lines are kind of all glued together into one object, that's called a block, okay? And when I use stretch and I encounter a block, the block maintains its integrity even if I'm trying to stretch it, okay? So this thing won't get larger or smaller because it's defined into a block, all right? So I just want to say that. That's why when we stretch these things, they don't change very easily, okay? But if I wanted to take this west wall of this garage and I wanted to stretch it out 10 feet, for example, okay, I need to somehow select this edge here, right, so that I capture this exterior wall. I capture a good point. We'll say, let's pretend that this wall had an elastic band from this corner to this corner, okay? I want to capture that wall where those elastic bands will allow me to stretch this out, all right? I don't want to grab the edge of the garage door because I want this door to maintain a 10-foot increment here, or dimension, okay? And if I grab the edge of that garage door, let's just show you what would happen. Stretch. It would stretch it out, and I don't want to hurt that integrity, right? What I essentially want to do is I want to use the stretch command, and I really just want to grab this edge, right? Enter, click a base point, and I want to stretch this over, okay? I want to stretch it over. I want to make the garage larger. I want to make sure that I grab this exterior wall, all of these windows, but I want this window to stay in place and I want this garage door to stay in place. So really, I'm going to draw a rectangle. My selection will be kind of through here, okay? And it's a tricky little selection, right? Because I just miss this window, which is what I want to do, right? I capture the wall at a good point where it can stretch. I don't touch any of these tags here associated with this window, but I am able to capture all these windows and this wall, okay? And then down here at the bottom, I'm also able to capture a really good area for stretching. It doesn't interfere with this and it doesn't interfere with those, okay? So in my mind, I look at this and I really have to work my way through all these objects to capture a good selection area, all right? Now, if you happen to miss something on your stretch when you select it, again, you know, just hit escape and start over. It's really kind of the best way to go about it. So I'm going to click on stretch. I'm going to click. I'm going to mouse over these objects here. Ooh, that blue selection window may not work for me because I'm not able to select this wall here, right? So I'm going to hit escape, and I'm going to S for stretch, enter. I'm going to try and capture this, but stay outside there, right? Click. There we go. I think I got it, right? I even pull my selection window through the dimensions. I click. Looks good to me. I hit enter. Okay, I click, I move in the direction I want to go, and I type in whatever dimension. So let's say 5 foot. Enter. So now that garage is 5 feet wider. Okay. S for stretch, enter. If I had accidentally gotten too close to those tags and grabbed them, enter. Ooh, look what would have happened. And that's not right. I have to hit escape. I have to hit S for stretch, enter. And I have to reselect outside of those tags. Enter. Okay. Okay. What if I want to stretch this top portion of the building north 5 feet? Okay. Well, I know that there's a window here. I know that there is a diagonal here. I know we have some things on this northern wall here, right? And I really just want to make these spaces 5 feet longer. I don't want to interfere with changing this angle or moving any windows, okay? So my selection set here would, I'm going to draw a rectangle through it. It would likely be through here, okay? Because it misses this text, I find a good place on each of these walls that become elastic and stretch out, okay? And it doesn't interfere with this right here, okay? S for stretch. I want a green selection window. You notice I start my stretch selection up and above the floor plate, right? And out to the right of it so that I can capture a lot or everything that I need, right? That looks really good. I'm not up here in that angle. I'm not too far down where I hit the text or the window or the tag or the stairs, right? Click, enter, click, a base point, move in the direction I want to go, and I type in my dimension, 5 foot, enter. Okay. If I hit S for stretch, enter, and I had accidentally maybe selected inside of that angle, enter, click, you see how it changes the degree of that angle, and we don't want that. And you see how it pinches it and warps it, right? We don't want any of that either. It gets narrower at the top. Okay. S for stretch, enter. If I had, stretched through here and I'd accidentally not quite gotten that wall and thought, oh, I'm going to do it again, enter. See, it just doesn't work. That's not correct either. Okay. One more stretch, and I'm going to show you another technique. In your assignment, you're going to be asked to make this bathroom a few feet wider, okay? S for stretch. Well, actually, let me draw a rectangle. I'm going to draw a rectangle through where I think this needs to happen, okay? And I'm going to, I don't want to capture that text, so I'm going to click here. If I want to make that eastern bathroom wall wider, if I stretch in the middle of the door will get wider, and I don't want that to happen. If I stretch right here, that's not a bad place to stretch, but the bathtub might warp kind of weird, okay? I think probably the best place to stretch for this would be right here, okay? And you look at this and you think, well, I'm selecting a door. Yes, that's true. I'm selecting this bathtub, yes, but I'm missing the sink and the toilet. I'm missing this door, okay? And what I actually, let's see, yeah, but this entire wall needs to move over, and this door needs to move over to accommodate the stretch, okay? So this is really kind of a good selection set for this to happen. S for stretch, enter, okay? Let me show you some errors that could have happened if I chose outside this set. Click. Let's go through the door. See, I'm intersecting the door. Click, enter. Well, that's not right. I don't like that, right? S for stretch. If I thought, well, I don't want to go all the way through this door, I'm going to stop here. That door is not right either. Okay. S for stretch, enter. And if I actually pick the window that I'm suggesting here, I do get one error, but I'm going to show you how to fix it. Click a base point, and you see how nicely everything moves over. The bathtub does grow, right? So if I wanted to make this 3 foot wider, I type in 3 foot, enter. The study it shrinks down, but all the doors remain intact, right? The relationship between where these doors are remains intact. My bathtub is way too big. Okay, I'm going to delete this window, and I'm going to hit undo. Okay. How can I not get my bathtub to stretch? Well, if you remember in our review video, I talked about removing things from a selection set, okay? So this would be a perfect place to remove something from a selection set, okay? So if I type S for stretch, enter, and I select these objects where I needed to select them, okay? While I'm still selecting, if I type R, remove, enter, it says remove objects. Well, I can now come in here and I can blue selection window out that bathtub. You see that? Remove objects. I'm done removing. I hit enter. I can click a base point, and now you see that bathtub stays where it needs to be. 3 foot, enter. We have kind of an odd situation happening here, right? So what happens? Well, that little piece of wall stayed with the bathtub. I'm going to delete that. This yellow piece of wall needs to go there. There's a couple things we could do. We could extend that, or I could take my grip and I could just drag it out to that corner. Click, right? That fixes the wall. There's a little gap here, but this is, this is really just an in-class exercise to get you used to this, okay? So I'm not terribly worried about what happens here, okay? Maybe they put a shower in. But the point of this is that I could remove things from my selection set. So I'm going to hit undo, 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 and show you that one more time. S for stretch, enter, right? Click, grab all these things that I think will need to stretch with my objects, right? When I learned how to use stretch, this was the most confusing part for me because I thought, what does this door and all these other walls have to do with the bathroom, right? And really, they have a lot to do with the bathroom because they have a relationship with the bathroom, right? This door right here is 6 inches away from the bathroom wall. This door has a relationship with that door, right? And so they all need to move over proportionally and for this floor plan to continue working, okay? So I'm going to click, and while I'm still in selection mode, I'm going to type R for remove, enter, and I'm going to blue selection window. See, this is the perfect blue selection window selection because if I use green, then I might unselect some of these walls that I want to keep in the selection set. So I blue deselect the bathtub. When I'm done, I hit enter. I specify a base point, click, move in the direction I want it to stretch, and I type 3 foot, enter. And it worked great. Now, if I had not had my ortho on, this could have stretched not straight, and I don't want that to happen. So make sure that when you're stretching, your ortho is turned on. Okay, so I'm going to click on that and hit delete. I'm going to grab that wall. I could use extend, but I'm just going to bring that out and connect it. One final thing you need to know about stretch is that if you have something like a window that is inside of a wall, stretch can also really be used to move objects. So S for stretch, enter. I select an object entirely in a wall, enter. I click and I can move it about. Okay, so I could also grab this and I could hit M for move, enter, and I could move it. Yes, of course, right? Oops, I moved it crooked. I could do that. But, we're learning stretch, and so I want you to learn how to use stretch, okay? So I could also alter things. S for stretch, enter, select the end of the garage door, enter, click a base point. Let's make this 2 feet wider, 12 feet, okay? Now, the nice thing about being able to use stretch to move an object is that in the case of the window, not a whole lot is different between move and stretch, right? I could hit M for move, and I could grab this with the blue selection window, enter, and I could move it up. No big deal, okay? the difference between the window and the door is that if I wanted to grab this garage door, blue, then green selection window, M for move, you see how the surrounding condition doesn't move with it, so I have a gap. And I'd essentially have to redraw all that and trim it out and extend it and fillet it. I'm going to hit undo. So what's nice about using stretch to move something, which I'm just going to do here, is that if I pick everything around that object, enter, everything with that object moves. You see that? How nice that is? Okay. So I can move objects, and the final topic within that idea is I want to be able to move objects precisely, meaning maybe I want to center this garage door in between these two walls. Or maybe I want this window to be right in the center, the midpoint between these two walls. Okay? I want to be able to use stretch to achieve those two things. So a couple things. I'm going to show you a new command called the M2P command, and it's the midpoint between 2 points, M2P. I'm going to go through it right now, and I'm going to show you how to do it, and I'm going to do it one more time. And it's going to be within the stretch command. So I'm going to initiate the stretch command, and then I'm going to use the M2P object snap and show you how to center something. Okay, S for stretch, enter. I'm going to grab this door, and I want it to be centered between this wall and this wall. Okay, so I've initiated stretch. I'm going to hold shift, right click, let go of shift, and I have M2P, mid between 2 points. Okay, how do I get there again? After I've selected my door, I hold down the shift key. While I'm holding shift, I right click, and then I let go of shift. Click on M2P, and it says M2P, first point of midpoint. Okay, so I'm going to, oops, sorry guys, I got a little lost in here. Let me do this without talking. S for stretch, enter, shift, right click, M2P, okay, and I'm going to grab, it says specify your base point. So I'm going to grab the midpoint here of my object, click, and then I'm going to pick where I want it to be centered about. So endpoint 1, and it starts to move because it's getting ready to measure to move. Click my second endpoint, which is the endpoint of that wall. Oop, and it didn't work. Undo, undo. S for stretch. My base point is this. Click. Okay, specify my use first point of displacement. Click once. Ooh, I am not doing very well here. Hold on 1 second. Okay, so I think I just got a little bit out of order, so let's do that one more time. S for stretch, enter. Sorry to confuse you guys. I'm going to select my object. I'm going to hit enter, and I'm going to pick this midpoint of my object as the base point of displacement. Click. I'm going to shift right click, M2P, point 1, click, point 2, click, and it centered it. I don't know what I was doing wrong before, but essentially you select, you pick the midpoint as your midpoint of the object you want to move as your base point, and then you shift right click, M2P, point 1, point 2, and it works. Okay, let me do that up here. I want to center this window on this wall. Okay, so S for stretch. Okay, select, enter. I'm going to pick the midpoint of that window, specify my base point, click. Before I do anything else, I'm going to shift, right click, mid between 2 points, and I'm going to pick my point 1, click. I'm going to click my point 2, click, and it centered that window between those two walls. Okay, now I'm going to take this window and I'm going to center it between the edge of this window and the edge of that wall. S for stretch, enter, select, enter, base point, click, shift, right click, M2P, click 1, click 2, centered. Okay, S for stretch, enter, select, enter, click a midpoint, click, shift, right click, M2P, click 1, click 2, and it centers it. I'll let you watch those a million times so that you can get the hang of it. The final thing that we will center is I'm going to take this whole door and I'm going to center it between here and that point. S for stretch, enter. Select the entire door and the adjacent walls, enter. My base point will be the midpoint here, click, shift, right click, M2P, between this point and that point, click, it centers. See, it's centered right there. Let's center this window in this space, S for shift, or excuse me, S for stretch. I grab the entire window. I don't pick those walls. I grab the window, enter, click a base point, shift, right click, M2P, click once, click twice, and it centers. Okay? So I'm using M2P with a stretch, but you really can use it with any object mid between 2 points. One more will just center this window between that point, that end point, and this end point. So S for stretch, enter, and I'm going to select the window only, enter. I'm going to pick a base point, which is the center of the window, click, shift, right click, M2P, and I want to center it between this point 1, click, and this point 2, click, and it centers it. Final little note on stretching before I end this video, and that is when I centered this garage door, I want to show you something I did. S for stretch, enter. I selected the garage door, enter, and when I picked my base point, I picked it on the bottom of the garage door and not the top, all right? And I did that because if I had picked the top, click, shift, right click, M2P, and then I had chosen this point here, 1, and this point 2 here, click. Do you see how these slope down? Okay. The reason that happened is because the base point that I had chosen was on the top, and so when I aligned it between those 2 points, it moved it down to be in plane with the wall here. That's why those slope down, okay? So when I centered this garage door, I picked my base point on the bottom, and I centered it between point 1, point 2, and then hit enter, and AutoCAD calculated where to put that, okay? So you're going to be, you're going to have an assignment, and actually the assignment is going to be very similar to what we have just done here with this video. You're going to use the same floor plan, and you're going to stretch it according to what the assignment requires, okay? If you have any questions, as always, feel free to email me. Otherwise, this is Stretch.